Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Stepping Up, the young adult content on the AAC Language Lab. I am Jane Odom, and I will be your cruise director today. And we are going to have some fun. So get ready to get a lot of information in an hour. I will try my hardest to make sure that we hit it all. Okay, so let me get this going. So again, I am Jane Odom. I basically run the AAC Language Lab and the Ambassador Program for PRC Saltillo. And just to give you my disclosures, I am a full-time employee as well as employee owner of PRC Saltillo, and I am a member of ISAC, USAC, and ISTE. And in the background, we have my dear friend Morgan, and she is going to be running the chat today and taking questions and helping me out when I need some help. So let's get through the housekeeping really quick. If you are having trouble hearing or seeing anything, let's see, you need to check your volume, check your speaker source. The easiest thing to do is log out and in again. And if that doesn't work, then you're going to need to contact Log Me In. We're not going to be able to provide technical support because we're kind of in the middle of the training. And then handouts are going to be available in the material link as well as the registration confirmation email that you got. All right, so if you are an ASHA member and you want to get your CEUs, you're going to need to listen and pay attention for the whole entire class. And then you're going to need to do all of the minutes in the class. And then there's going to be an ASHA form that you found in the materials link and the feedback survey. Both of those need to be completed. And if you don't get your ASHA work correct, they're going to be rejected. So make sure you follow all of the directions that are included there for you. Excellent. And then we have a little box on the side. You have if you're either on your desktop or your web view, it's pretty much close to the same thing, but you're going to see there that that's where you have the materials link, as well as you can chat out questions there. So as we're going through, Morgan is going to be in the background because she's absolutely fabulous, and she's going to be answering as many questions as she can. And if she can't answer the question, she will save them, and we will have time at the very end to answer some questions. All right, so today we're going to look at lesson plans and activities on the lab that can be used to engage adolescents and young adults. And I will honestly tell you, so this can go from middle school probably up to the top age. All right, so I have had clients that we've worked on some of this with that, are in their 60s. And so it just depends on, what they're working on and where they're located. So we are going to look at the materials that are available, and then we're going to look at something called bricks. And this is a section on the Language Lab that is specific to young adults. And I'll tell you about my experience and how we developed this. And then we'll talk about the process for the main part of bricks is doing something called a dream board. And we're going to talk about how useful that can be for you and how we used it and how we developed it. All right. So we're going to look at the language stages. We're going to look at the screener. We're going to look at bricks. And then at the very end, hopefully we have time, we're going to look at our ambassador program. And so that is getting improved as we speak, and I'll show you what that is, which is really kind of cool. And then we'll have time at the very end for questions. So the Language Lab was developed, well, back in the day, it used to be just a little section of the PRC website that people could upload things. It was kind of like this share center, but there was no quality control, nothing was regulated, and it was not really organized. And so I was challenged. The CEO at the time came to me and he said, we are going to make a really good teaching site. And so we want you to help with this. And so we had a whole team of us that got together, like IT guys and the web designers and some of the consultants. And we thought, what do people really need? And so we looked at Brown's stages of language development, and we wanted this to be based on research. Now, Brown has 5 stages. But what we did for the Language Lab was we made it 6 stages. So we took that first stage and we kind of expanded it into stages 1 and 2. Stage 1 is where students would start learning where their vocabulary is. And then stage 2 is when they start using those words for more robust communication. So starting to string words together and putting, a verb with a preposition and expanding their sentences. And so we'll talk about that. So This is a great little chart, and I have this hanging up in my office because I refer to it all the time, but it really allows you to see like where things are on the lab and how they're organized. So feel free to take a look at that. But we're going to have some fun today. So I'm going to be flipping back and forth from my PowerPoint to directly being in the AAC Language Lab. So if you are in your workbook, we're going to now look, you have the language stages in front of you, but we're now going to look at something called the language screener. So when I come here to the home page of the Language Lab, and if you're not familiar with this, if you haven't done a tour of the Language Lab yet, you can click here, and that'll take you to a link this summer. They're all recorded. So we're not doing any live ones this summer, but you can click here and watch a pre-recorded video, and it kind of takes you all over the lab and you can see what's in there. But it is a subscription. So it's $20 for the whole entire year. So quite the deal. And also, if you are working with clients that get a new PRC or Saltillo device, like a dedicated communication device, they get a code for a subscription in the box. So if mom's not going to use it, you know, let her know, like, oh, I'll take it, that she can certainly share that code with you. All right. So there's a lot of interesting stuff on the homepage about how to get started. We're actually doing camp right now. So this is week 2 of camp. And so these are just like really some free fun activities, you know, just to get kids talking over the summer. All right. But we show you where what the latest stuff is on here, the latest lesson plan, the latest activity, and then the blogs. And we'll talk about that and also in a little bit. And then we show you what's most popular. The most important thing here is this button here that says contact us. These are emails that come directly to me and my team. So if you do have suggestions, or God forbid you find a mistake, or you have some like really cool idea, or even a complaint, you can shoot that out to us. And I literally document absolutely everything that people suggest. So we take those very, very seriously. So up here at the top, this is new to the site. And we updated this site about 1.5 years ago. We have something called the language screener. So I went into a classroom when I was a consultant, and I live in Arizona, and I was in the Phoenix area at the time, and I went into a classroom to do some staff development with a student's staff that just got his device. And they were passing out this sheet of paper, and I said, what are you doing? And they said, well, we're doing this screener. So they took all of the objectives from the Language Lab and just turned it into a little checklist. And they'd given it to all the staff that was working with Johnny. So the kindergarten teacher, the music teacher, PE teacher, there was the OT, the PT, the speech, the SLPA, and the speech pathologist. Everybody was, and all the classroom assistants, and they're all just checking off where they thought Johnny was. So it was a really nice way for everybody to kind of get on the same page, as well as see what the sequence of objectives that we were going to be working on. So we could see what order we were going to be doing things in. So you have a couple choices. You can download this screener and print that out, or we have a wizard. And so we're going to show you what this wizard looks like, and I'm going to do my dog. Now, thankfully, my son took my dog, so he will not be interrupting, because God forbid the FedEx guy comes, my dog goes crazy. But basically, we have this checklist, and it's saying like, okay, Zeus, that's my dog. He regularly communicates with me. He tries to direct my actions all the time. He expresses negatives, and he expresses requests. And then I'm going to go on, and I'm going to just check off where my student is. Now, I suggest when you are working with older students to do all 6 stages, because a lot of our kids that are older, or even our young adults, they may have splinter skills. So especially if maybe somebody is moving from one device to a new communication device, or they're changing language systems, or they're older and they may have some skills that you don't know about. So you can kind of go through here and go, oh, wait a minute, yeah, they do that. Or occasionally they use 2 words together. Oh, they never express negatives with 2 words. And occasionally they make requests. But then I can go through the whole thing and go through every single stage and say, you know what? My student may be a beginning communicator, but he sure does know what plurals are. Or they already know how to use prepositions. And so you can go through the whole entire thing. So stage 3 is going to be when they start to form sentences. They start to conjugate their verbs. So they may be working on going and different verb endings. They may work on irregular verbs and prepositions. And so you can go through the whole entire thing and see where those splinter skills are. All right. And so just for the sake of time, I'm going to hit all nevers here. I'm not going to go through the whole entire thing now, so that we can get out of this. All right. And then when I get to this point where I'm hitting all nevers, it says, do you want to continue or do you want to finish? So if you're doing this for the first time, I'm going to do all 6 stages. If not, I'm just going to hit finish. And now I can download these results. And so now I can have a copy of what my student is working on, and I can keep track of this, you know, every month or so, or maybe every quarter or every 6 months, we do the screener again, and we can kind of show that growth and show parents or show staff, you know, what your student is working on and what they've accomplished. So this is just a nice, super simple way to kind of keep data directly from the language lab. All right. So that is our language screener. All right. The other thing that does is it shows me on here on the lab where I would start with that student, okay, based on what I chose in those screener results. Okay, so it tells me here because I didn't hit regular for all of them, I need to start on stage 2 and work on directing actions. All right, so let's go into the lesson plan, and I'm going to show you how to search for materials for young adults. So it said we need to be in stage 2. So I'm going to come here, and you can see over here on the left, I have filters. And so I can filter for Spanish materials. And so these are going to be lessons that have books and games that are in Spanish. I can clear that. I can look for things that are mobile lesson plans. I can look for lesson plans that have been anglicized for use in the UK, because this site is actually also in the UK. And we had to have certain spellings, like mom is mum, and you know, color is spelled differently. And so our staff over there went in and made sure that everything was anglicized. But right here, I can search for content that's young adult. And so basically that's what that's going to do, is show me all of the lesson plans that have specific activities for young adults. All right. So it's a really easy way for you to kind of go in and say, all right, I need something that's going to be age appropriate. I totally believe in things being age appropriate. Nothing makes me crazy. Oh, when I was a consultant, I used to go into like a high school class and they're all sitting around watching Barney, and it would be absolutely bonkers. It's like, these kids do not need to be watching Barney. Right? All right. And then, so lesson plans, we're going to go into stage 1, and I'm going to show you one of the lesson plans here. Lesson plans are pretty complex. So they're going to have sections for speaking, for reading, for writing, and then for extension activities. And so extension activities may be a link to a video, it may be a game to play with the students. And so if they are video links, I make sure that if I have one for a child, like she'll be coming around the mountain, I also have one for an older student. So I think I picked Selena Gomez, Everybody Come and Get It. So it's more age appropriate to watch a video than it is to sing like a kid's song. All right. But you can see here, when I come into where the book and the reading section is, I have a Spanish version of the book, I have the regular version of the book, and then I have a young adult version. So let's take a look at the difference. So when I open up I Do, I Don't, and this is the regular version, you're going to see that we have these little cartoon characters. And so, you know, they're cute and all, but that may, you know, that might offend some of our older kids, like, oh, that's a baby book, I don't want to work on that. So what we did was we created a young adult version, same content. So still in stage 1, but now we're going to be looking at something that is more age appropriate. And so when we come down to the illustrations, you can see now we have photos, or we have cartoons that are more age appropriate. So things that are going to hold the interest of an older student. Okay. And so that is right there in the lesson plan. And you can see these are colored blue. And then you can also see here that I have a young adult writing template. And so this is a writing template that you can use, and it's going to show how you would, you know, that one that is geared for young adults. So let me go back over here to our PowerPoint, and let's talk about the computer emulation to do one of those writing templates. Okay, so this has been something that I started working with kids and showing them how to do computer emulation, because it's really cool and it's really fun. So if you have a dedicated device that has the ability to do computer emulation, you might want to teach your student how to do this. It's a wonderful way for them to express themselves, to kind of like explore their device, while they're doing something meaningful. So they're doing something for a purpose. And it's really kind of cool because you can do it with a USB cable, or you can do it with a Bluetooth adapter, which allows you to go wireless. All right. And so basically the device becomes an alternative keyboard. All right. If you're working with an app, or you're working with a device that doesn't have computer emulation, you can get super fancy because you can go into, I think it's Google Docs, and it has voice recognition. And so you can kind of create documents in there, and if you turn the voice recognition on Google Docs, as the student is using their device, Google hears it and it'll put that into a Word document for you as well. So it's really kind of cool. NovaChat has something called Stories and Scripts, and you can use that as well. All right, so that's what the YouTube or the USB adapter looks like, and this allows you to go wireless with Bluetooth. And then you have Stories and Scripts. You can save messages to buttons when you're using word power, and if you're using apps, you can either transpose the text into that template, or you can use voice typing with Google Docs. So kind of cool. All right. Morgan, I forgot. What do people want to be when they grow up?
Oh, we have lots of interesting occupations. So, of course, we had doctors, lawyers, teachers, somebody who wanted to be an SLP from the time they were little. Jazz musicians and some marine biologists and dolphin trainers and owning a soda shop. And my favorite was the clown.
Oh my gosh, how fun is that? Great. So keep thinking about those guys, because we're going to talk about that in a minute, okay? We're going to go we're going to figure out a lot of what you want to be when you grow up. So it's kind of fun. Thank you, Morgan. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's take a look at another lesson plan. So now we're going to go into, so when I come up here and I want to get somewhere, I can either click here to go to stage 1 lesson plans, which is kind of over here on the left. I can go to the main lesson plan page from here. I can also drop down here and go to lesson plans from the top menu bar. All right. And so you can see here, here's all these different lesson plans, and these arrows will bring you to more lesson plans. All right. If you have not done an overview of the Language Lab, these are free trainings that we do every month, or you can simply watch the video from that link on the homepage and then get a better tour of the Language Lab. So we're not really going to do that today because we're going to be looking more at some activities. All right. So we're going to go to stage 3, and we're going to look at this lesson plan and directing actions. And you can see here that we have, again, different versions of the book. So we have we have the book Come, and we have a young adult version, and then a Spanish version. All right. So, and then down here at the bottom, go down here to the extension activities. This is where we have the links for the video. So if I'm working with a little guy, we'll sing She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain, because we're working on the word come. But here I can sing Selena Gomez, Come and Get It. And this will be a direct link to YouTube where the student can watch that video. So it's really kind of fun. And we try to, keep it interesting for these kids, because a lot of our older students have they don't want to use their devices anymore. They don't want to look different than their peers. And so they want to, be cool. And so this is a way for them to have like a lot of fun and keep it exciting. All right. Okay. So now we're going to play a game. And I want you to think about where you live and the age of the kids that you work with. And we're going to start looking at slang. So this is something that I like to add onto my students' devices, because it, allows them to kind of be cool when they're talking to their peers. So there's 3 different kinds of slang words. There's positive words like cool. There's neutral words like, oh, okay. And then there's negative words like, oh, gross. So why don't we add out a couple positive words? So think about what your students say that are cool and positive. And then Morgan, if you want to pop in there and.
So we got lit, sweet, nice, yeet, awesome.
All right, so we got lit, that's a good one.
Lit.
All right, and sweet.
Sweet.
All right.
Someone who brought up sick.
Sick, there we go. See, now I wouldn't even think about these. And, you know, and these words are going to be like it depends on the age of the student, what they're saying. It also depends on the location. So slang in Canada might be a little bit different than slang in, you know, South Carolina. And it may be different than slang in California. So, you know, listen to what the kids are talking about. All right. And so what are some neutral ones? I'm going to put my favorite that I always put on little girls' devices. Whatever.
Meh.
Meh. Very good.
Bruh.
Negative one.
Did you get the other, are you ready for negative or do you need neutral?
Negative. Or I'm sorry, one more neutral one. My bad.
Okay, so we got bruh, like B-R-U.
These are fabulous. How much different are these when I was a kid? Oh my gosh, totally different. All right, what are some negative ones now?
Trash.
Two more, guys. Come on.
A 0 out of 10. Cap. No way. Akko Taco. I haven't heard some of these.
Akko Taco. Oh, I have to put that one down. I don't know how to spell that one.
A-C-O-T-A-C-O.
There we go. So I was working with a young woman, and she was fully included in middle school. So she was an 8th grader, and she had a power chair, she had a communication device, and she had an assistant, a one-on-one aide. So guess where she sat in the classroom? Always in the back. So she was always in the back because she had like her laptop and her device, and then the aide was helping her. And so she didn't really get that whole inclusion is when we want the kids to be part of the community, of that classroom. And so she wasn't really getting that because she was always sitting in the back, and you know, she just didn't have that interactivity. So what we did was we started this lunch group for her. And there was a student teacher at the school that was a college kid that was like, she's like, I'll volunteer to lead it. So once a week, they would get together, and there was a group, Sydney picked 8 girls that she wanted to be in her lunch group. And so these girls would get together, and when I was available, I would come in and work with them, and we would talk about different access methods for the device. We let them all try the device out. And Sid was a scanner. So she was a 2-switch step scanner. So it took her a long time to be able to say things. And so once the girls learned like what it was like to scan, and they realized like how hard it was for her, they became like almost like her advocates in the classroom. Like they were her people, you know? And so they would remind the teacher, oh, you know what? Sid knows the answer to that. You just need to give her a little time. And they would speak up for her. So we did a slang game with them where all the girls got to come in and they had to have a slang word. And they were going to record it onto Sid's device. So Sid, we had like all of her interjections. We put in 8 new interjections in there that each girl got to pick. So they recorded them in with their own voice. And so it was just so much fun that day. And then what we didn't realize was Sid started greeting her friends when she saw them in the hallway with the slang word that they recorded onto her device. She knew which one said which, and she started greeting them with their slang word, which they thought was the coolest thing in the world. So it was such a win-win for this young girl, because now instead of the kid in the back of the classroom, she had this group of these girls that hung out with her, that wanted to include her. Hey, are you going to the football game? You need to come and sit with us. Hey, we're having a birthday party. Why don't you come? Oh, there's a school dance. We're all going to go together. And it was just life-changing for this young woman to all of a sudden have these people that were like her posse, her group of people. And it was just so very, very exciting. All right. Okay. So we're going to keep going now. That's just the fun, is the slang. Now this, I'm going to show you this little video. This is one of the games. A lot of the games on the Language Lab, they may not be designated specifically as young adults, but as you go through the activities, and I'll show you where they are on the site, these can be modified very easily depending on what age they were. So I'm going to show you this video. So what this game is I went to the dollar store and I got a fly swatter. And what we did was we printed out these bugs, and each bug had the words on it that the student was working on. All right. And so you put Velcro on the fly swatter, you put Velcro on the bugs, you turn them over, and then the students get to whack the fly swatter and catch a bug. And then once they find the bug, depending on what they're working on, they can either find that word on their device, They can use that word in a phrase, use that word in a sentence, use that word in a question, whatever you're working on. But what's nice is you can play this game with a group of kids, and each student may have a different outcome or a different expectation that you have for them, but they're all playing the same game. And by being able to whack a fly swatter during speech time can be very motivating for some of our kids and our teenagers. I mean, they just absolutely love this game. So this is just like one of the sample activities, but I wanted to talk about scaffolding that activity so that you can just work on whatever that student is working on. And each objective can be different for each student. So we tried this out in a middle school, and we had a set of bugs for each kid. So Stefan had his set of bugs, and Kimmy had a different set of bugs, and Delfino had his own set of bugs. And when they, got their word, each objective that they had to find was different. So they're all playing the same game, but they're doing different things on their communication devices. And what was wonderful was they had no idea that each one was working on something different. They were just answering the questions. And so it was really fun. And what the teacher said that maybe the kids would pay attention for 10 to 15 minutes. We played that game for 45 minutes. They didn't want to stop. And the only reason we stopped was because it was lunchtime. All right, so lots of good stuff going on. All right, so that is, let me go back to the site now. I'm going to show you where to find those activities. So again, this is the lesson plans, and we came up here to lessons. We found the lesson plans. So again, lesson plans are going to have reading goals. They're going to have writing goals, extension activities, speaking games, and there's going to be tons of information for you to use, and pick and choose what works for your student, okay? I can also come up here and I can go to activities. And so when I go to the activity section, these are going to be one activity, like one thing you do at a time. So these are meant to be, 10, 15 minutes, and we're going to find something to do. All right, so they're divided up by stages. And then there's also an all levels, which is going to have those games that you could play with all of the students. Okay, so these are going to be really fun games that you can play with small groups of kids using different devices on different language systems, and it's all cool. So how do you find stuff? We use our filters. Okay, so here I can search for words that I'm working on, concepts that I'm working on, or I can use these filters. And when this opens up, you can see here that I can look for different activities, but I can also look for age levels. So I can come here and click on young adult and say, all right, I want to find all the young adult things. And now these are going to just show me things in each stage that are appropriate for young adults. All right. So if I turn this filter, if I clear this, you're going to see there's a ton more. I'm just kind of narrowing it down and showing the ones that I want to see. All right. So we have a lot of really fun activities that you can find. Okay. All right. So that is how we use filters. All right. In your workbook, we have another page that says I don't, and that's a writing template that you can use with your kids. And all they have to do is find words. So they're just going to find things like I don't what? So what are some things that you don't do? I don't eat olives. I don't drink Kool-Aid. I don't, whatever. So these are just some examples of fun things that you can do. So when I open up the I don't book, I have that, but then I also have an I don't writing template. So I can list things that I do and things that I don't. And if you notice, this is a PDF file, but there are going to be fillable text boxes. So I do drive, and I do, Morgan, what's something that you do?
Eat.
Eat. Students, and we can work on verbs, and what do? I like to kayak, and I like to hike, and then I can talk about things that I don't do. So I don't eat olives. Yeah. And I don't like to sweat. I don't like it when it's like I live in Arizona, but yeah, so you can come on here and you can play this with your student as well. This is a lot of fun for device exploration. So you can learn where those verbs are. If you're teaching maybe prepositions, you're teaching, Describing words, you know, this is just a fun template that you can go in and do this over and over and over again. All right. All right, so we talked about computer emulation. We talked about slang. If you look in your workbook, the next thing that you're going to see is the Build-A-Burger activity. And that activity is, I put that in there because that's just a nice example. We're going to actually move kind of quickly now because I'm talking too much. But the Build-A-Burger activity is a nice way to teach kids to expand their phrases. So they could find a pronoun in the first box and a verb in the second box. Oh, but say I'm looking for Build-A-Burger. I need to find it. I can search here, right? But I can also come up here to this search up at the top. So if I'm not for sure where something is, I can just search here and it'll help me find something. All right, so there's Build-A-Burger right there because I did this. This is the all site search up in the top right-hand corner. All right, so this activity, again, is going to have a box of pronouns and it's going to have a box of verbs and then the word to and then infinitives. So it'll like, I want to go, I want to play. And then you can encourage that student to put another word at the end of that sentence. So it's just like kind of a visual writing template to kind of get kids to expand. So use those writing templates as much as you want. So there's another one in your workbook all about, you know, what you did over the weekend. One thing about computer emulation is I was invited to come into a classroom and it was an older student and they were doing circle time and this kid just wanted nothing to do with it. And he started acting up during circle time. And I said to the teacher, well, maybe he's a little bit bored. So what we did was we set up a journal writing kind of like this, what I did the weekend. And so 3 days a week, he had journal writing instead of circle time. He was still doing the same content in circle time, talking about the date, the weather, you know, what the lunch menu was, what special thing was going on at school, but he was writing at it in the journals, which was a little bit more age appropriate than circle time for this particular student. So it worked out really well. I had another therapist that was trying to get rid of circle time for her older students. They started a news program. So each student was a reporter. And one week, you know, Johnny did the weather. The next week, Johnny talked about what was on the lunch menu, talked about, you know, whatever they were talking about. But each kid had a different section to do for the news. And then one student got to take the iPad and record the news. The teacher edited it over the weekend, and then they watched the news program on Monday. Oh my gosh, those kids loved it so much. They got to do the sports, they got to report on the football games, they got to talk about special events, and they had so much fun doing it, and they became way more confident on their devices. And they really had just a lot of fun with that. So we're, again, looking for those age-appropriate things. All right, so what we've added to the Language Lab is we've added under the program and curriculum section, we put this thing called bricks. So I'm from Philadelphia originally, and I went to Temple University where I was blessed because this was way back in the 80s. I'm not going to tell you my age, but I'm older. And we were one of the first universities to have an AAC program. So we got a grant. It was us, University of Rhode Island, and Berkeley got a federal grant to develop a college program, a university program, graduate level, for AAC. So I went in because I was getting my grad school paid for, and they had this big grant, not knowing exactly what it was, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So I got to study under Drs. Diane Bryan and Amy Goldman, and one of the classes that we did was something called ACEs. And ACEs was Augmentative Communication and Empowerment Seminar. So I went in as a grad student, and then I went back and taught it for 9 years. I was a communications instructor. So it was a 2-week seminar every summer on campus at Temple, where AAC users would come as well as professionals. So we had speech pathologists, we had occupational therapists, physical therapists, rehab engineers, special educators would all come, and they would learn side by side with AAC users. So I was set up with a guy named Bob Williams, and Bob had cerebral palsy, and he was in his mid-20s, and he had a spell board. And so this is way back in the day. It was a wooden board with all the letters of the alphabet. And Bob would kind of point to the letters to spell his message. So he was usually on word 6, and I was on word 2, and he'd get totally irritated with me because I'd be like, oh, you have to tell me that word again. But nobody was really paying attention to him as far as like his voc rehab and his counselor, like, you know, his state person that, you know, helps him with everything. And so, you know, he would spell things out, but it wasn't really like, they, you know, if somebody wasn't listening to them or spelling or engaged with him as a communication partner, oftentimes things got lost. So at that point in time, they were going to put him in a nursing home. And that is the last thing that any 20-something-year-old young single man wants, is to be put in a geriatric nursing home. And we got him a communication device with a voice output system. So it was something called a Liberator. And Bob got his Liberator, and we did a training with Bruce Baker, who developed MinSpeak, and we all learned how to do that, and Bob picked it up right away. And he started telling his caseworker exactly what he thought of their idea to go. And he said, "Oh, I want to live independently." And he wanted to move to Washington, D.C., and he wanted to be involved in politics and the government. And that was when the ADA was like right at the beginning stages. And so he was lobbying Congress with his communication device to try to get laws passed for the ADA. And so here was a young man that, you know, they were going to just tuck away in the nursing home. He went on to be very, very active with getting the ADA passed. He went on to work for President Clinton for 8 years as Commissioner for Developmental Disabilities. Absolutely amazing. He has spoken at ASHA. He has spoken at Isaac. Just an amazing guy, because he had a voice and somebody listened to him. So ACEs was incredibly powerful. So we had components in communication, in empowerment, and then in computer access. But it was 2 weeks a year on campus in Philadelphia. And so there was only a certain amount of people that it could help. So maybe like 15 to 17 adults with AAC devices would come. And so, you know, we weren't reaching a lot of people. I mean, it was an amazing program. So we talked about, let's make it so that it can live on the language lab. So we didn't use the name ACES, so we called it BRICS, Building Relationships and Independence Through Communication Supports. So I got together with a couple therapists, so a young woman named Candace Steele and Dr. Caroline Musselwhite, and we went over the curriculum that Temple used for those 2 weeks, and we developed it so that it could be used in an adult day program or in a high school class or in a middle school classroom or in a group home, you know, wherever you're working with a group of adults. And we tried to get this so that it like made sense. And what we did was we tried it out at a place in Phoenix, Arizona called Gompers, which is an adult day program. They serve over 400 adults on the main campus that use adults, and many of them are AAC users. So what we did was we went in first and we trained their staff. So their staff were not speech pathologists. They were not even special educators. You know, they were day workers, and many had no experience working with AAC. None of them had experience working with AAC. So what we did was we had some lessons to get them started. So this getting started section is for you to train staff. So we have the, you know, like a getting started talking about being a good communication partner, how to model, all right? And then we talk about some of the myths that are in, oops, went to the wrong section. There we go. We talk about some of the myths that like, you know, oh, if somebody uses a communication device, they're never going to talk. And we're like, nope, that's busted. And so we talk about the myths. We talk about being a good communication partner. And then we talk about how to schedule. You're going to have to set up your schedule. So this is not something that is done once. You know, you need to do this regularly. So for what we did at Gompers, because it was an adult day program, was we had 2 weeks where we worked with this. It was, I think we had 14 AAC users that wanted to be part of the program. And so we worked with them for 2 weeks straight, and we went through the whole entire curriculum. All right. So some high schools have done this, and they do it once a week, or they do it, you know, a certain time during the day. So it's up to you guys to set up your own schedule. All right. And then we talk about who each person is. This is especially important. And that's why I asked you, what did you want to be when you grow up? Because how often do we ask our AAC users, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, that's not something that's generally asked. And that was what Dr. Diane Bryan realized, was that, you know, we were talking with a young group of adults, and she asked them, you know, like, well, you know, when you were young, didn't you talk about what you wanted to be when you grew up? And they're like, nobody ever asked me. And so we were like, oh my gosh. So what we do is we start with these little templates here. There's a poetry template called Who Am I? There is a just a whole strategic way to ask them, like, who are you? What do you like to do? What are your interests? So they can kind of start thinking about who they are and what they really, really like. And then what we do with them is we do something called Dare to Dream. So this is the pinnacle of this whole entire program. So this is what you want to make sure that you do. All right. And it's very, very simple. You get a poster board for each student. And after they sit there and they figure out who am I, then we work on organizing their dream. Okay. So there's a Dare to Dream worksheet that's in there. So what they want to do is we want to ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or, you know, if you're already grown up, what do you want to work towards? Where are you going to live? What goals do you need to meet to get to where you want to be? So we have some dreams could be, I want to learn to read. Nobody ever taught me to read. Or like Bob's, I want to go work for the government. Or it could be a very, very simple dream. So we had 2 women that came through ACEs that lived in nursing homes. And one woman, Emily, said, I want the remote control at 2 o'clock. She was never remote control, and she wanted to watch all my children at 2 o'clock. That was her dream. And that was okay. We celebrated that dream. And we were so thankful that she told us, and we got to talk to the staff so that Emily could watch her story every day at 2. And we had another woman that lived in a nursing home that wanted to have mac and cheese once a week because she never got to pick what was on the menu. Like they just had a schedule and this is what you got, and everybody got the same thing. And she wanted to be able to have something that she wanted. She wanted her macaroni and cheese once a week. All right, so we put all these dreams together and we put it on a poster board. All right, so you're drawing this out for them. All right, so this is Nayeli's, and Nayeli, this picture right here, Nayeli is a high school child, or a young woman. She was high school. So she was our youngest that came through at Gompers. And she wanted to be a speecher, she called herself, which I thought was brilliant. So she wanted to teach other kids how to use their AAC device. And so she called it a speecher. We were like, that's brilliant, right? So what we said to her is like, okay, then what are the things that you need to do in order to reach that dream? So you need to learn your device. You need to work on literacy. You need to learn how to read a little bit better. And then we need to start looking at colleges. So there was a community college right in the neighborhood that had an SLPA program. And so we were saying, like, if you work really hard in school, we can help you go to community college and become an SLPA. All right. And then she named people that were going to help her. So she named Krista and Candace that were going to help her do that. All right. So it was really, really, really powerful that she wanted to be able to do that. So I'm going to switch back over here to our PowerPoint. And so there are some photos of what we did at Gompers. So here's some of the staff that we're working with our clients, our members. This young woman right here, she uses eye gaze on a Tobii device, and she wanted to feed the hungry. Now, it's going to be a pretty challenging thing to do. She lived in she still lived at home with mom and dad. This is a young woman who's a Native American. She lived on the Navajo reservation. So we helped her kind of refine her dream. And so you want to feed the homeless. Let's start off with using your device to research recipes on your talker. So when we had special events, it was her job to determine what the menu was going to be. So our first big meeting, she wanted to have Navajo fry bread. And if you've never had fry bread, it is so absolutely yummy. So she went online and came up with a shopping list, and staff went out and got all the ingredients, and we all cooked together. And if you could have seen her face when the director came in and we got to tell him that she had planned the menu, and you just saw her sit up a little bit straighter, her head shot up a little bit higher, and she was just so incredibly proud of herself. So she was working on communication goals, but she was working for a purpose and for something that was important to her. All right. And so that's what we tried to do, was make sure that no matter how crazy the dream might be, and some of our younger kids come up with ones that are a little bit less attainable. I had one student wanted to drive in NASCAR, and he was, a kid in a power chair and with quadriplegia, and we're like, well, that physically may not be happening, but guess what? You can watch the races and report on them for the school newspaper. And so that's how we kind of modified that for him. So it's just a matter of getting a little bit creative. All right. And so you're going to get started by determining what your schedule is going to be. And then you're going to put together what those dream boards look like. So you can see the different dream boards here for the students that we worked with. All right. So once we worked with the dream board, so here is Nayeli, and you're not going to be able, I doubt you'll be able to hear, but she is talking about, like, I want to teach other kids. And so she, look at her face. She is so stinking proud of herself because people that you had as your partner. So we made sure that we got to celebrate that, and she had so much fun doing that. All right. The other thing that we did was we taught them social skills. And so this is another one of the lesson plans. And what we did was we had shout out boards for each student. So these were just hanging up in the classroom, and we had sticky notes everywhere. And so every day you had to come in and say something nice about all your friends that were in the program. Or if we were working on something and somebody did something really cool, somebody could say, oh, I want to give them a shout out. And so what we would do is we'd write it out on the sticky note, and we would populate those boards. And at the end of the 2 weeks, everybody got to take their board home, and they got to see all the cool, nice things that people had said about them. So not only did they get to practice commenting, but they also got to, kind of feel like pretty good about themselves, And this is also really important and when we teach them about computer access and communicating with more than just their device, communicating via social media or texting. So we were teaching them how to say kind of cool things and comment on things when they're on those different platforms, or TikTok or Instagram or whatever they're using. All right. And so it was really important for them to learn how to communicate and learn how to initiate things, which is really, really kind of cool. All right. So computer access was not only things about the computer, setting up email. A lot of our students don't get speech once school lets out. So maybe it's important to show them how to do some programming, some basic programming and device maintenance and device operations so that they can do things on their own without having to rely on somebody, right? We made sure that we set up email accounts for everybody. We actually practiced filling out job applications. We practiced texting. We practiced using social media. So there are all kinds of lesson plans for each one of these. And you guys, I seriously ask you that if you decide to do this program and you do things that aren't on there, if you could share those with us, I will be more than happy to get them up on the site so that other people can use them. Or if you have ideas that you want us to develop, we are more than happy to do that. All right. And then we talk about empowerment. And so this is something that we may not always hit on in school, but a lot of our clients, especially if they have physical disabilities, may have a personal attendant, a personal assistant. Well, eventually they're going to be able to need to tell them, what do they like? Like, when do you want to eat breakfast? How often do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need help, like, say, booking transportation? And so we taught them how to be able to tell people what they need and what they want in a nice, polite way. We talked about personal safety and being able to tell somebody when something is wrong. So Gail Van Tatenhove, who was a therapist out of Florida, she is like the AAC goddess. She's absolutely fabulous and really brilliant. She did a whole thing on story retelling. And I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. And I didn't get it at first. And then she explained it to me. She said, when something happens to somebody, they need to be able to tell somebody else. So there was a gentleman that one of her clients lived in a group home, and the attendant that's supposed to make dinner didn't show up one night. So he was able to go in and, tell Gail, like, I didn't eat dinner last night because, Jason didn't show up. And she was like, oh, do you need me to call your caseworker? He said, no, I already did it. I took care of it, because he knew how to do story retelling. All right. We also talk about voting and how to register to vote. So we actually had the election commission come out and show all of our AAC users how to register to vote and how to ask for accommodations that they are able to ask for. So, there are accommodations that all the voting centers have if somebody needs it and you just need to be able to ask. So they explained what all the accommodations were and how to ask that. If you dare, you can talk about sexuality. This, I will tell you, is opening up a can of worms, but oftentimes this is probably one of the more powerful conversations. I always make sure that if I'm working with high school or younger students that we, make sure this is okay with mom at first. But we've had clients tell us about abuse. We've had clients ask us questions. It's just amazing what comes up in that conversation when people feel safe and they feel that they're in some place that somebody's going to listen to them. So it can be very hard, but it's really, really important that, God forbid, something happens to somebody, they need to know how to tell and how to ask for help. All right, so it's really, really powerful. The other thing we did was we had live peer supports. So we're going to go through this really quick because I want to show you the ambassadors. We actually zoomed in 2 of our ambassadors from PRC Saltillo to talk with the group. So we had Brad Whitmore come and Skype in, and he is actually one of our engineers, like our software engineers for PRC Saltillo. So he's brilliant. So he's a scanner. So he was showing how he has some shortcuts on his device and things that he does. And then we had Chris Klein come in, who is a huge advocate and just an amazing AAC mentor. And he came in and talked to everybody. And we watched a documentary called If God Could Hear Me. So this is on YouTube. It's free. You guys show this to your students. It will blow their minds. So If God Could Hear Me, and look it up on YouTube. It is so powerful. All right. Then finally, we made sure we celebrated success. We had graduation. It was only a 2-week program, but we had caps and gowns for everybody. Everybody took their "Who am I?" speech and they read it to the whole entire staff and all their friends at Gompers. Their parents were invited. We had food trucks come. You can see that we had a barbecue truck, and then we had this icy truck. We had a dance afterwards. We had a big cake. And you can see the faces. I mean, these folks, all of our clients were like, I don't want to get up in front of everybody and talk. And we're like, no, you know what? You really can do this. And so we really encouraged them. Every single one of them got up and they said what they were going to do, what their dreams were. And if you could have seen the pride in their faces. And what was even cooler, guys, even cooler, was there is a job coach at Gompers. And they run all the job programs. He took all of their dreams and incorporated them into their individual service plans. So all of them, as they were doing job training, were working on something that was meaningful for them. It was absolutely brilliant. And then you saw all of a sudden wanting to use their AAC, wanting to learn to be better communicators. I mean, it was just extremely powerful. All right. So we're going to move over to the Language Lab now, and I'm going to show you where to find our peer mentors, all right? So if I come up here to blog, I can see that there are blogs on the Language Lab. I put them up twice a week. So they go up on Mondays and they go up on Wednesdays. So you can get all kinds of good information. So here is Wylanta. She is a therapist in California that made the communication core boards for the playground. And so she has all the instructions here for how to do it, how she got it financed, how she got it printed. All right, but we also have blogs that are done by device users. So here Carson is talking about programming. Look at this little cutie. So Sophia was talking about like needing a nap at school, like don't we all? Hannah talks about adulting, being like, adulting in AAC. I mean, there's some really, really good articles that are in here. And you can click here and receive notification in your inbox when new blogs are added. So if you want to do that. All right, but if I come down here to the bottom, I have ambassadors. So ambassadors are actual device users that have been that have applied, and they go through an interview process with me and my staff to determine if they're a good fit to be an ambassador. And ambassadors are device users that have been communicating for a while, and these guys are fabulous. So you can click on any of these. So here is Chris Klein. And Chris is one of the guys that came in and he Skyped into our program at Gompers, but he has this little bio of who he is. He's a college graduate, he's married, he lives independently. He's a pretty funny guy, right? Right, Morgan, I think you've met him. But down here we have a way way to watch a video. You can actually see how Chris communicates. So you can see here, he is actually using his foot to communicate. So he has his device on the floor, he uses his big toe, and he communicates with his foot. But you can leave a message for him at the bottom, or say you think like, oh, I would love to have him come and Skype in and meet my student, or speak at a faculty meeting, or speak at a college class. You can send a message out to him and he can tell you his availability and how much he charges. But we have so many different ambassadors, different access methods, different communication devices, different language systems. So it's really fun to kind of get in here and you can see how, oh, we've got like some just fabulous, fabulous folks. And some of these are really, really funny. So be sure to come and check this out. Utilize ambassadors. If you have a student that you think would be interested in being an ambassador, first of all, I'm sorry, they have to use a PRC or a Saltillo device. They can use an app, that's fine on an iPad. We don't really care, but they need to be a good communicator and they need to, want to be able to talk to people. So sometimes our ambassadors, do things via Zoom and Skype, but when things open up, they're at conferences with us. So we pay them and we pay all their expenses to come and work the booth at ATIA or work the booth at Closing the Gap. And it's a really nice way for you to get to meet a really good communicator up close and in person. All right. So if you have somebody that is interested in becoming an ambassador, right here on that main page at the very bottom, they can fill in their name, they can fill in their email and who referred them. And then they go through an interview process. And right now we're working on some training protocol. My ambassadors are developing this for me. So I have a group of tier 3, I call them, like some pretty really competent, amazing ambassadors that are helping me develop it. So it's going to be pretty cool when it's all done. All right, so that is our ambassador program. Highly recommend you come on and check that out. You do not have you don't need a subscription to see the ambassadors or to see the blogs. So if you don't want to spend the $20, but you want to come on and interact with any of these guys, feel free to do so. All right. So in summary, you're going to use the stages and the screener to get you started. Try out computer emulation. If you do not know your consultant, I would, you can reach out to us. We can get you hooked up with your consultant and they can help you do that as well. Remember that everybody deserves a dream and that your ambassadors are available for you if you need them. All right, so we're going to take some time now, Morgan, if we have any questions, and then we can wrap up after we answer some questions, if we have any questions that need to be answered.
Yeah, I didn't see many questions. Lots of good comments about using bricks for transition services.
Excellent.
But I don't have any questions yet. If you guys have questions, pop them up there.
You know what? I always get my questions at 2 a.m. Like I never think of them. So if you get your 2 a.m. question, very, very bottom of every page on the Language Lab is contact us. Shoot me an email, stay in touch. Let me know how things are going and how you're doing, all right? So just to finish up, you can go to the PRC and the Saltillo site to have information on training and education. This will be a recorded session that is live up there. So if you have colleagues that you think might be interested in seeing this, they are more than welcome to go in and watch that video. All right. So you can watch those recordings. Saltillo has a YouTube channel. The AAC Language Lab also has a YouTube channel. So you can, if you go onto YouTube, just search AAC Language Lab. You can go and see like little mini videos of how to do different activities, as well as some of the ambassador videos are on there as well. So you can kind of check that out. So that's what that looks like. So AAC Language Lab on YouTube, and then subscribe. So if you subscribe, then that looks cool. So we've already got over 500 subscribers, so you can kind of check it out. Thank you so much for attending. Another way to reach out is if you are on Facebook, the AAC Language Lab also has a Facebook, it's got a Facebook group, so you have to ask to join AAC Language Lab, but that's a really nice way to kind of stay in touch with people, and you can ask questions there. You can see when new things are on the lab. I put those up there as well.